All right, Brent Porcy at TopVelocity.net. I'm doing a 3x pitching analysis here of Kyle. I'm going to pair him up with Bob Wheatley. Bob was here training with me this off season, and his first pin was around 83, and we got him to 91 miles per hour, which is the hardest he's thrown through the 3x pitching velocity program. So this is from that pin. He hit 90. I thought this would pair up well for Kyle, lefties. So let's start through the delivery. Let's take both into leg lift. Let's take Bob into leg lift. Okay. Okay. Notice, something that we worked a lot with Bob. Notice with yourself too, Kyle, is Bob coming in the peak of his lift. He's already moving towards the target. There's not really a lot of movement going forward at this point. You can see he's definitely already shifting into his lift leg at this point. Okay. So you don't want to allow yourself to come back into your lifts or balance up over this back leg. You want to lift and start to fall through the hips, and the ideal goal is to move forward and down at the same rate with those hips without opening your front leg or letting your lift leg take over the movement and kick or get out front. So let's take you into your load. Okay, so you lead with your hip here, which is good. You stay closed with both your front foot and your shoulders. Okay. And then you initiate your leg drive about right here. Okay, so let's take Bob through his load. Okay, you can see Bob has always struggled with staying closed. He has very he has very tight hip internal rotation, so it's hard for him to hold an internal. So he typically flies open early, but able, which is what we worked on him, he was able to still hold torsion on the back leg. So notice in the loads here, Bob, you're more closed than Bob. You actually even have a good torsion in the back leg. You're just not lowering down. It's something as Bob threw harder, we saw a significant lowering of the back hip to the ground in our 3x pitch biometrics breakdowns. If you want to see his biometrical breakdowns showing distances and speed of joints, check that out on my YouTube page. But you can see a significant lowering of weight, which more than likely will give him a more linear back leg force vector, which we can see here is the tool is not showing. Let's see. Let's try this again. Okay, that's his back leg there. There we go. 55, let's say, to your, 60, I guess. And I cut yours probably a little short. But actually, let's try that again. Okay. Bob's 56 to your 60. So, maybe he's got 5 degrees more linear force vector. So that means this leg is 5 degrees down. But definitely if we had a distance tool here, which we can do with our biometrics, you would see you're definitely higher in your center of gravity, which is going to be key. So at this point, where's the weight? Bob obviously has a lot of his weight loading on that back leg still. See the good chin behind the belt buckle here. I think you're not bad there. I think just the difference between you is you're not as loaded. Your center of gravity isn't as low. Okay. So what you need to do is coming out of your lifts as you move forward and down. Start earlier, obviously, and lower that center of gravity a little bit more as you move forward and down. And you can see here, you start extending before you start opening. Okay. Problem is if you start extending before you start opening, you're going to start pushing your body towards the target, and because you're so vertical, you're pushing it a little up. But we want that back leg drive to really drive hip rotation, so we have to open the front foot. And about the point right here when you'd open the front foot, about right there, that's when you would want to drive the back leg. And you can see you're already off the rubber at that time. So lowering is going to help you a lot. If you can lower your center of gravity more and then trigger your hip rotation with your front foot and then power your back hip rotation through your back leg drive, that would be your key. So you're timing that rotation at the wrong time. So look into foot sync. It's one of the 3x pitching advanced components in the mechanics guides. Learns foot sync. You just need to time your lower half drive and rotation better. And I think going into front foot, it would just convert better to. You can see because your back leg is, even though it's driving, it's kind of swiveling with your front foot, but it's just not really allowing for a lot of the linear power. So here's the thing, you know, linear power typically converts better to ball speed because ball speed is velocity directed towards the target. So if your back leg is pushing force but more for rotation, which you can see is you start to push and internally rotate quickly and then open your front foot kind of at the same time, then it's therefore the movement of the lower half is more typical to rotation. So you have an obvious purely rotational lower half. Okay, that's why lowering your center of gravity more and triggering hip rotation with the front foot early would then allow this to get really linear and at the same time create rotation. You're just more purely focused on rotation. So your back leg extension starts and then you internally rotate, and that internal rotation kind of leads opening external rotation in the front leg, and you see a lot of rotation in the hips. Okay, so you land, your hips are perfectly open, which typically would happen if you're very rotational. But then what we're probably going to see, which I haven't watched the end of this delivery, is you're going to just finish your trunk very rotational. And that's the problem. The difference between rotational and linear pitching is the trunk of a linear pitcher is going to move more forward, as we watch Bob here. So his front foot is open. He initiates his leg drive. Okay, he hits front foot. Look at the stride length difference between you two. Okay, he knows how to cock the arm and counter rotate the shoulders, but watch how he finishes. Okay, you can see the trunk really pushing out into a good linear position. We watch how you finish. Okay, you're pushing your trunk out, but you definitely don't have the linear finish on the trunk angle that Bob has. So if we took kind of say that angle 88 to your angle, you know, you're definitely not linear. You're tucked over your front leg. Okay, he's extended on his front leg. He's, because of that, more over his front leg with his trunk. So this is very typical to me of a rotational finish. This is very typical to me of a linear finish. And there's approaches out there that believe in rotational pitching all the way from the beginning to the end, and it's flawed. It doesn't produce a lot of energy. You can go really fast, you can separate, but you won't deliver a lot of linear energy into that ball, which is the problem. So as much as rotation is a part of the movement, which is hip to shoulder separation, it still has to be more driven by the linear movement. And we have tons of studies that say front leg extension, a more vertical trunk position, and right into first maximum external rotation and then into pitch release is typically a higher velocity pitcher, and we can see the difference between you two here in that finish. So I like your start. You just aren't preparing for the leg drive. So you're not lowering the center of gravity. You're not timing the lower half to be more, set up for a more back leg drive, linear drive. And then of course you don't finish. You just continue to be rotational. You don't finish with a more linear extended front leg, therefore pushing you into more forward trunk tilt, which is really, really the key to throwing hard. So basically, you're going to have to start to take your rotational delivery and start to implement some of the linear aspects, which is the back leg drive, the front leg drive, and the linear aspects of those drives, and then the more dynamic trunk movements at the same time. But that's the whole 3X pitching velocity program. So you're in the right program to do that. You just have to kind of start from the beginning and allow your delivery to change, because it needs to change your delivery. And that's going to be the challenge for you, is allowing your delivery to change with the drills and with the approach and with the mechanics and with the science. So I hope this helps. Appreciate you being patient on the video.